Hey guys, it's me, Rich. We are watching one of the most fragile economic house of cards stories in America right now. Today, we're talking about California's budget, billionaires, and a new tax plan that could trigger an exodus of the very people funding the state. On the surface, everything looks stable and prosperous. However, what you'll soon see is that the state's entire system may be balanced on a tiny group of ultra-wealthy taxpayers. And even a portion of them, if they leave, the consequences could be massive, sudden, and impossible to hide. This new move by the California legislature will hit poor people the hardest. You won't believe how quickly this could spiral once the first domino falls. And the first domino has already fallen. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to RPW Media, where we talk about the stories the mainstream media won't touch. So let's talk about California, the Golden State, beaches, tech billionaires, movie stars, sunshine, innovation, endless wealth. But what happens when the money quietly packs its bags and leaves? Because here's the part that nobody in power there wants to talk about. California is dependent entirely on a very small group of extremely wealthy people. And if those people walk away, the math stops working overnight. Think about that. Not slowly, not gradually. Overnight. The top 1% of Californians pay half of the state's tax revenue. Half. That means the entire system is built on a tiny sliver of taxpayers. California runs roughly a $350 billion budget. So let's ask the uncomfortable question. What happens when half of that disappears? Imagine waking up and realizing your paycheck has been cut in half, not reduced, cut in half. That is the scenario policymakers are flirting with right now. They're playing with fire. California has roughly 200 billionaires. Together, they hold around $2 trillion in wealth. Now remember, wealth is money that you earn that has already been taxed. These people can move anywhere they want at any time. They have the money, the lawyers, and the mobility to leave quickly. And if they go, their tax dollars go with them. California's finances look less like a stable system and more like a Jenga tower. Remove the wrong block and the whole thing collapses. And the blocks at the top are holding the whole thing together. And now we get to the catalyst. The California legislature is working toward a one-time 5% wealth tax on billionaires. Does anybody believe it's one time? The tax would apply to wealth over $1 billion. And payments, oh yeah, they could be spread out over 5 years. But if you do not pay quickly, additional fees apply. In other words, pay up fast or you will be punished by the people committing highway robbery. Now, think like a billionaire for a moment. Not emotionally, logically. Would you stay? We're already seeing movement. Mark Zuckerberg purchased a $200 million house in Florida. Florida has no state income tax. That means someone who once contributed massively to California's tax base, about 22% from this one guy, could suddenly contribute $0 to the state. Nothing. Florida sales tax exists, property taxes exist, corporate taxes exist, but there's no state income tax. That changes the equation immediately, doesn't it? This is where the story gets even more dramatic. If California voters approve this ballot initiative, anyone who was a resident as of January 1st, 2026, who has $1 billion in wealth could still owe the tax. Move after the date and you may still be on the hook. Now think about that. That message sends another message. Pay now or pay up later, but pay. I mean, think about it. Zuckerberg bought the house in Florida on February 11th of this year. Now he's going to say, look, I was living in Florida. I was renting a place until I found a house all year long. I haven't been here. They're still going to go after him because legally, no matter where he was, he lived in California. And billionaires are not famous for waiting around to see how future taxes might grow because history shows what starts as one-time tax rarely stays that way. Remember, the 16th Amendment, the federal income tax, began as a tiny tax on the very wealthy. You paid 1% if you made $1 million or more. Today, nearly every working American pays income tax. So when billionaires hear one-time wealth tax, what they really hear is first wealth tax. One billionaire reportedly told a real estate agent in Florida the new tax could cost him $5 billion. Imagine writing that check to a government you believe will keep coming back for more. Now, here's the bigger picture. If those top earners leave, the state loses roughly half of its revenue. What happens next? Well, progressive governments do what progressive governments always do. They look for replacement revenue. And that means higher taxes, more fees, more pressure on the middle and working class residents. And then what happens? More people up and leave. California has already lost a congressional seat due to population decline because they don't know how to treat their residents. Now the question becomes whether the tax base itself starts shrinking. This is the economic domino effect nobody wants to discuss publicly, because if the wealth leaves first, the tax hikes come next. And if the tax hikes come next, the middle class follows. And suddenly, the most beautiful state in America faces a budget reality nobody can ignore. Now, if the top taxpayers leave, California faces a massive budget gap. If the gap grows, taxes rise. If taxes rise, more people leave. Whether you agree or disagree with the policy, the stakes are enormous, and the consequences could reshape the state's future. Democrats right now are trying to think of ways that they could blame Trump and the administration, but they can't, because they did it to themselves in California with progressive policies that don't help people's lives, but buy votes. Well, guess what? It's too much. This wealth tax, if it catches on, it's going to go across the country. So it should be stopped now. But the problem is the SEIU is behind it, okay? Which means that they've got all the unions in their pocket and they're all going to vote for it. So think about that. So the people of California may really screw themselves if they pass this thinking, money, 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 give me money. Well, guess what? Yeah, you're going to have that money from the wealth tax, but you're never getting their yearly income taxes again. So tell me what you think in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.